Hey all, so let's talk about this new update to balancing in the contest. I realize that there are a lot of conflicting opinions about this and quite a bit of hesitancy and fear, and I really understand why. At its core, this, affects how we feel about the champions that we choose to invest resources in. Often that's money, but for an awful lot of us, it's just time and effort and emotional investment. And all of those really matter. You don't want to feel like those have been taken away from you or invalidated. So the emotion surrounding this makes a lot of sense, and I'm not going to try and talk anyone out of well placed fear and skepticism, because Kabam does not always nail everything. However, I would like to go over why I personally am cautiously optimistic about this announcement. Because if we look back over the last year, I think most people would agree that if we're looking at, quote, overpowered champions, the standout possible options are Hercules and Kitty Pryde. And especially with Kitty, there were an awful lot of people on her release pushing for her to be nerfed. And Kabam chose not to. With Hercules, there were people saying, this is ridiculous, this is broken, and Kabam did change something with him that was making him a bit too strong, and they brought him more in line with what they wanted him to do, and then they left him that way. And we still have him in the game. With Shang-Chi, probably the best skill champion to come out this year, and arguably one of the best skill champions in the game, there was a broken interaction, they fixed it, they went no further. All three of those champions are still incredibly valuable. I'm happy that I have Hercules on my team. I am actively hunting for Kitty Pryde, and Shang-Chi is one of my highest asks out of the basic pool. None of them have been ruined by those small adjustments. But on the flip side, we have Psycho Man, Super Skrull, Mangog, Purgatory, and America Chavez this year. All of whom are interesting, but definitely fell short of what they should have been, and none of whom have been fixed yet. The thing is that we can all ask for Kabam to accelerate the buff process, but if there's no truly systematic way for them to go about it, a predictable way for them to process that significant backlog, then there's a real chance that they'll either fall further and further behind, or we'll get rushed buffs like Nova, or even like Guillotine or maybe Gamora. I know those ones are a little bit more debatable, that just don't really satisfy us and leave us wanting an additional buff in the future. So I think that the idea behind this is aimed more at fixing those purgatories, those Chavezes, in a timely fashion so that the rest of the buff program can focus on making it through that backlog and, fixing our superior Iron Mans or our Groots and making them competitive as well. And I think that if you read through this post and you get down to when they talk about why balancing is actually important, it reflects that. Right here, they say, balancing allows our designers to continue to innovate and try new and interesting mechanics with more confidence, knowing that if it doesn't come out the way we intended, we can go back to address that. For anyone who actually tried to play America Chavez or Purgatory, I'm just going to stick to the two of them for now. There are a lot of really cool, interesting things in those kits. Their playstyles are really fun. I have tried using both of them. Purgatory is actually one of the best champions on my alt account. There are a lot of very cool and new mechanics in both of their kits that almost get there. Playing them, you kind of go, oh, okay, and then this fits together and that fits together, and oh, I see what they were going for, but the final product isn't worth it. And I think that's what they're saying here, is that, yeah, we find ourselves being more conservative in our approach, and we want to fix that. They are not saying here balancing is important because the player base is not using enough items because we released Hercules. Because we released a character that we knew was going to be that strong and then regretted our decision. So I do not think that's where they're going here. And I think that this part here about the addition to the team backs that up. Because I know there was a lot of speculation about this, but it has now been made public that the new member of the Balance team is Jnik of the YouTube channel jnicholas92, which I will share in the description, who is currently a member of the Alliance SAS. For those of you who are not familiar with Jnik's channel, he's one of the smartest and most thoughtful people who plays this game. I consider him a friend of mine, and again, if you haven't watched his channel, he would be the first to tell you that the way he got into SAS was in part that he was a particularly good Archangel player. For almost a full season, most of his wars were, and here's me using Horseman Archangel. He's a very good player who can use a lot beyond that. I mean, his rank 4 is Shang-Chi, who I've often said has a higher skill cap than people give him credit for. But this is somebody who plays and enjoys Archangel. This is not one of those players who thinks that none of us should have fun and none of us should have powerful champions who make us feel like they have completely conquered fights. So I don't think that the Balance team is going to try and take the fun out of this. I don't think they're going to try and take away the Hercules. I think they just want to make the Purgatories feel like what they were going for. If you think back to some of the previous buffs, I know a lot of people love to talk about Kabam Broccoli, the designer of a lot of the most powerful champions in the game. And for a long time, one of his biggest failures was Ebony Maw. Now apparently the story is that the original version for Maw was so powerful due to all the new abilities that they had to nerf him down. But then he was too weak. They were too conservative, like it says here. And so they buffed him a little bit, they buffed him a little bit more, and now I actually quite like Maw. I know not everyone does. But I think that's more the idea here. The idea is to bring people all up to that minimum level so that they function well. Now, that's why I'm optimistic, but let's talk about the possibilities here based on this. So, it's about a 6-month cadence. And in the end, what that means is that I think the worst case scenario for this is that new champions, on average, are more powerful in the future. And then 6 months out, once the rest of us finally start pulling them, and the whales have dominated Alliance War and Alliance Quest with them for that 6 months, they get nerfed to make way for the new overpowered champions. I think that's where a lot of the fear is coming from. And if that happens, I will not be defending it. That would be truly awful, and I think that would spell the end of this game. But here's the thing, I think Kabam knows that. And I think the people building this game want it to be around. I think they know that it is their primary source of income, but it's also a source of pride for a lot of the people who work on it, and they don't want to necessarily run it into the ground with such a blatant cash grab. So I think the hope here is more along the lines of, okay, we know that this is going to scare people, crystals are going to drop in the short term, but this will set up more confidence in the long term for every new champion to have at least some value. 6 months after their release, the idea is for there to never really be a miss again. Like, the minimum would be Maw after all of his reworks, who, again, if you still think that Maw isn't good, then I think you're missing something. But that's beside the point. I really think that the point here is more that than just them releasing broken champions and then nerfing them all after 6 months, because that would absolutely be killing the golden goose. And on some level, I won't let myself believe that. I kind of feel like the Captain America here in Endgame, where they say this will work, and he says, I know it will because I don't know what I'll do if it doesn't. That's kind of where I am here. I could decide to despair and draw the worst possible conclusions about Kabam's motivations here, assume that they are lying, assume that they will take the worst possible path forward, and just try and wring money out of the game over the next year, knowing that it will crater and die and we'll all leave. But if that's the assumption I'm going to make, then I don't know why I'm still here. So I am going to choose right now to accept them at their word that what they are trying to do is raise the floor more than drop the ceiling on the power level of future champions, that they are trying to give us more voice in this process, that they're trying to move it out of a vacuum, that they're trying to give us more insight and more predictability, and that will then allow them to go back and fix the old champions we all know need updates, without us constantly going, okay, but when is Super Skrull going to get fixed? It's been a full year and he's still bad. That's what I'm choosing to believe that they are intending to do. And then from there, I can say, okay, they are delivering on this promise, or they are not. And if they are not, it will concern me, and I will say so. But I think that I am going to be less stressed out and happier coming at it from that way, and evaluating their execution more than second guessing their intentions. And that is what I would recommend to anyone who is willing to take guidance in this. But I do understand the fear. I really do. I mean, I love my new champions. Probably the most powerful one that I've pulled recently is maybe Penny Parker. Not for defense, but for offense. And, if tomorrow they suddenly removed all of the incinerates from her L2 and all she did was okay power control, I would be really upset. And I didn't even spend money on her. I just spent 6-star shards and then catalysts. I would be really upset. So I do get it. But I don't think that's what's going to happen, because that's not what they're telling us is going to happen. And I'm just choosing to have faith. Like, even on the subject of the rating system, the way I think about this, I know that they originally said Hercules was a low utility champion. I don't want to get into that particular discussion. But I think the idea of the rating system is more along the lines of, when Icarus was released and Icarus was bugged, and was doing way more damage than he was supposed to, I think it would have been really helpful to have this rating system in place, so that we can see, okay, is Icarus supposed to be a 5 out of 5 damage dealer? Like, this is too much, but is what he's supposed to do still ridiculous? Or did you design him as a 3 or a 4 damage dealer, and are we supposed to consider the energize in his kit, the resistance to power control, the immunities to shock and incinerate? Are those the important parts? Did you rank him higher on utility? That's what they're saying here, is that the rating system is supposed to give us insight into what champions are intended for. And I think that particular example gives me hope that that will actually be useful. So again, I am cautiously optimistic on this, but because of the way that the war season is working right now, because of all of the other issues, I am going to be watching this carefully. I understand skepticism. I'm not telling anyone who is skeptical that they're wrong. I'm just trying to explain why at the moment I am still optimistic. Thanks for listening this far, and if you were worried, hopefully this has at least tempered it a little bit. I'm sure this will generate some discussion in the comments, and I look forward to it. If you want to talk with me more directly, I'm sure this will come up in streams again soon, so I will see y'all there. But until then, thanks for watching, and take care.